神様。はあ。もっとあっちだ。
If we move the base of the fiber just a little, now we find that the tip of the fiber moves more than was asked. In other words, it's as though I walk up to something that is ordinarily rather soft, like the piano, and I push against it. And when I push against it, instead of pushing back, the piano instead pulls me farther in the same direction. It says the piano has the capacity to do work against me, against an external object. Similarly, this says that the hair bundle can do work against the fiber. So this is part of the amplification. If you place the hair bundle in the red region, it must jump over here, or it must jump over there. It cannot stay in between, but always, out of that water molecule will push it one way or the other. So anything that shoves the system into that red region will cause it to jump back and forth. And that's the basis of an amplifier or an oscillator. So in fact, what moves it into that region is a process called adaptation. I've shown you before that we move the hair bundle in the positive direction by applying a force to it. Channels open, and it turns out that calcium ions flow in, these sort of purple or puce things. They go inside and bind somewhere, and we still don't know where. But when they bind, the little gates close. And you can appreciate that when those gates close, they'll put more tension in the yellow gating springs, the yellow tip links. That extra tension pulls the system back to the left. So we've created a little machine. We apply a mechanical force to the right, and with the delay, it jerks back to the left. Just because it's a tiny, but the active number produces a result that's 100 to 1,000 times as big. The system is highly tuned to a specific frequency. So for a given position, you will find that it's most sensitive, it has the highest gain for the weakest stimuli. And as the stimulus gets stronger and stronger and stronger, the response to the gain gets weaker and weaker, so it shows compressive nonlinearity. And finally, the system can go unstable. So if we give stimuli of constant size and turn the knob in the model, we'll get a small response, a progressively larger response, a progressively larger response. And finally, the thing will cross what's called a Hopf bifurcation, go unsteady, and begin to oscillate spontaneously. So this idea of bifurcation is comparable in physics. Now, the notion is that bifurcation is a qualitative change in the behavior of something as you smoothly adjust the parameter. Let's say you smoothly turn the knob. So to give you one example, this is a little piece of elastic. The piece of elastic is linearly elastic in one direction. So if I push it to your right, it moves a certain distance. If I push it twice as hard, it moves twice as far, 3 times as hard, 3 times as slow, twice as slow. But if I move it in the opposite direction, it bifurcates. So there goes an abrupt change. It's so sad. Abrupt change in its behavior. So this is a particular kind of bifurcation. It's not a Hopf bifurcation, but it shows you at a particular point, the thing undergoes this very abrupt change. The Hopf bifurcation is different in that it's oscillatory. The thing goes from being stable in the absence of a stimulus to unstable, and this is what we think causes the spontaneous oscillations, the spontaneous overboosting emissions. Now we can characterize this behavior by looking at something called the state diagram. So this is the diagram for water. If we look at the temperature and the pressure, as you know, we can get gas, that is water vapor, we can get liquid, we can get various flavors of ice. Similarly with the hair bundle, we can control two dials, two parameters. This turns out to be the stiffness of our rod, this turns out to be the force of the applied rod. And what we find is that there's a region in which the hair bundle oscillates spontaneously, as you see. This we think causes the overboosting emissions. And there's another region where it's perfectly stable, that it will respond to mechanical stimulation. Now one of the things we're working on now, and the idea that I'll show you, may not be right, is how this system adjusts itself in our algorithms. Now, if we're in a wild environment, it might be nice to be right over here, away from this region of oscillation and high sensitivity. If we're in an ordinary environment, things get more sensitive. If we're in a very bright environment, the ideal position would be right there. And if we're in absolute silence, then farther into this vision, and then we get to a mid-sound, something bigger. So we're trying to find out what is the knob that does this, or alternatively, what knob might make the push bigger, so that it encompasses a fixed operating point. In other words, you can imagine that the upright always prevails, but you get bigger and bigger push until you get the spontaneous oscillation. So that's the thing. I'll tell you that. This meeting, this control room meeting, was based on this such as myself, with those who are interested in the central nervous system and how sound processing and ultimately speech come out of all this. This is a very rich environment for this. In case you didn't know this, this is one of the preeminent areas in the world, the preeminent institutions in the world where this is occurred. So along with Princeton and the Western Institute in Dresden, JIT is one of the 3 premier sites in which physics and biology have been commingled in a particular way. So it's a very special place for us to be. So one of the things that we're looking for at a higher level, this is the brain, the cerebral cortex, the small G-wall, cell brainstem, and whatnot. We know a lot about the visual brain. The visual brain is here towards the back of the brain. It has a number of areas that are defined by the architecture and other criteria. And we know something about the visual brain. So stiffness, this is stolen from the SpaceX website. It's also acoustic stiffness. We certainly don't know the detail that I just showed you. We know that there are higher areas that are more defined, like Wernicke's area, that are involved in the perception of speech sounds. So people who have a problem in this area, like a stroke, but have what's called receptive aphasia, they can hear, but they can't make sense of speech. We know that areas such as Broca's area that are involved in productive aphasia, a person there can, with a lesion there, can hear okay and recognize speech, but cannot produce it. So we really need to learn what the wiring is among these areas, how information flows to this region, how ultimately messages get over to Broca's area, and then from there, down to the tongue, the larynx, and so on to produce speech. And there's some very productive work in these areas that we've learned about in the last few days and the presentations here. Another set of things we're doing is looking into how these remarkable structures, the hair bundles, are formed. They're remarkably regular, and they really look like they're snapped out by a mold or a cookie cutter of some sort. How can this be done? And it turns out that a person can explain some of this. So this is the top of one of these cells, and you see the hexagonal pattern of the stereocilia, the single chymocilia. If you suppose that there's some pink chemical coming from the chymocilia and some other green chemical coming from the boundary, you can make simple reactions and a prediction of how this would produce the pattern of a hair bundle. So you start out with this mess, nothing at all, but as soon as you turn on the reactions, something coalesces. And something coalesces into neater and neater structures that look more and more like the hexagonal pattern of a hair bundle. So we're busy trying to understand now how this works, and also to demonstrate it experimentally. So with new microscopic techniques, it's possible to see hair bundles actually growing. So this is from a fish. This is a newly formed hair cell. This is a newly formed hair cell. As yet, they don't have hair bundles, unlike these more mature cells, in which you can see the stereocilia sticking out. But in a time lapse, over about 12 hours, watch these stereocilia grow. So here they come. They're getting taller, taller, taller. And we hope eventually to be able to follow them all the way to full maturity. So we're trying to test these ideas of chemical reactions that produce these mature hair bundles. The final thing I want to deal with is what happens as these cells deteriorate. What can be done in a word about hearing loss? We start out with these beautifully regular hair bundles with age, with chemicals, with sound damage. They become disheveled. And the bad news is that in mammals, when one of these cells is damaged, it always dies. It is not replaced by cell division. So it's like the cells of one's brain or one's heart. Once they're gone for good. And because each of these cells or groups of cells represents a particular frequency of sound, those particular frequencies are lost as well. So one place we've investigated this is the lateral line organ of the zebrafish larva. So zebrafish are little aquarium fish that many of you have had raised as kids. The larvae are just a few millimeters in length at age 1 week. And along their side they have something called the lateral line. These yellow markers which have been stained with the dye, each of which is a cluster of hair cells. These hair cells reach out into the water and they feel water motion. So they can feel water moving past the fish, they can feel the fish moving through the water, they can detect predators, they can detect prey. They're very important cells for these fish. Each of these little clusters, which is called a neuroblast, has hair cells. In this case. And they're of opposite polarity. The two red hair cells have their tall edge to your right. They're sensitive to stimuli like the red arrow in that right direction. The two blue cells are symmetrical and sensitive to stimuli in the opposite direction. These are produced in an interesting way. The ear sits just behind the eye, but from the ear, a cluster of cells called a primordium streaks off down the length of the animal when it's 2 or 3 days old. And as it goes, this primordium deposits clusters of cells. So here's the primordium chugging along, and a cluster of cells being dropped. And here's a quick time-lapse movie showing that. It's like bombs letting off passengers periodically, and always dropping off about the same number. So the primordium is here. This is part of the tail of the fish. Here's one cluster of cells, a second cluster of cells, a third cluster of cells dropped off by this primordium, and finally it gets down to the tail, maybe a day or so later. Now, if we look at one of these clusters, we can see the hair cells developing within it. So to start, I want to point out this cell here, which is black at the outset, like these other black cells around. These cells that are fluorescent, yellow or green, are hair cells. There are in fact 1, 2, 3 pairs of hair cells here, 4 pairs of hair cells over here. This cell has decided it would like to be a hair cell, or more likely, it's going to be 2 hair cells. In just a minute, we'll see a very exciting macrophage come. There it is. And this cell will now undergo a division. Into 2. Watch this cell. It's going to commit suicide. So it's gotten old and died. So there's sort of a conveyor belt system. New cells are formed at the North Pole and the South Pole. As they get older, they move to the center and eventually die and are replaced. Here's a schematic diagram of that. They're stem cells that are constantly making new cells, and they're always made in pairs. And interestingly, the pairs are always of the opposite orientation. So one cell, the one on your right, is sensitive to motion to your left. The cell on your left is sensitive to motion on your right. These cells then in pairs move down towards the equator from both directions, and then finally age and die. The reason I bring this up is that we can now use this system to try to decode the molecular and genetic pathways that are involved in this progression. What is the stem cell? What is this amplifying cell? And what are the series of reactions involved in the progression to new hair cells? And by decoding that, we hope to be able to learn how to evoke something similar in the mammal, including the human. One of the put out a tentacle like an octopus, reach up and grab a nerve fiber. So here we go. Here comes the tentacle. It missed. Here comes the tentacle again. Now it's got the nerve fiber and it reels it in. This is something totally unanticipated. Nobody's ever made movies of this before. And it gives us new clues to look for the molecules that are involved in this interaction. The other system we and others are working on is the mammalian system, in particular mice. Now, in animals such as the zebrafish that I just showed you, if the hair cells die, there are left over so-called supporting cells that are normally between hair cells. And in zebrafish, and indeed in reptiles and birds, these supporting cells will undergo mitosis. They'll split, making new supporting cells. And some of those supporting cells, say these two, will then turn into new hair cells, and we'll be back where we started. This animal will be able to hear again. We can't do that. In mammals, what happens is that the supporting cells do not undergo proliferation. Instead, there can be some that turn into hair cells, but they're now too few supporting cells, and the whole thing tends to die. And this is what we're left with, just the scar where the hair cells once were. So we're trying to find out how to deal with that using the utricle, which is another organ for the mouses here. Here's the cochlea. The utricle, which is easier to dissect, is nice and flat, has on the order of 2,000 or 3,000 to 10,000 hair cells, shown here in this nice pink color. It's the organ, remember, that's sensitive to up and down, and particularly side-to-side motions of the body, but the hair cells are very similar. And what we've done in this case is look at the capability of this utricle to make new supporting cells and new hair cells. So this white ring, each of these white spots, represents a hair cell that's divided. And what we find is at P0, which is the day of birth in a mouse, there are a lot of cells that are still capable of dividing. But just over a week later, there are only a few left. And this is a graph showing the same thing. Just after birth, the capacity to divide diminishes enormously. And for the rest of the animal's life, no new supporting cells, no new hair cells can be made. So we asked what genes are changing around that time. There are a number that were already known for various reasons. But we discovered this red group of genes called SOC changes abruptly. Their expression of each of these genes falls, except this one, which is a contrary gene, goes in the opposite direction. And this is very exciting because we can manipulate such genes. We can use a virus, for example, to re-inject these genes and turn them on. So here we have a cell, or sorry, a utricle that's a couple of weeks old. There are no cell divisions at all in its interior anymore. But if we use a virus to inject this gene for SOX4 or the gene for SOX11, the particular molecules I mentioned, we turn things back on. So this is really a wonderful thing because it means we may be able to find ways of re-initiating the proliferation of cells and then the differentiation of new hair cells. Now we don't want to do that with virus. None of us much wants viruses to be injected. But what one can do is to look for small molecules, that is drugs, that do the same thing. And our group has screened 65,000 small molecules.
はい、大鳥神社がありました。はい、大鳥神社。本能寺です。岸坊神社。ここまで過ぎたら岸坊神社。岸坊神社。
sensitive, it basically turns itself up until it begins to get spontaneously fictive or really fictitious inputs. Those are experienced as phantom limb pain. Similarly, if you've burned out hair cells, particularly at the high frequencies, that portion of the auditory cortex doesn't have input. It now tends to produce spontaneous sounds, which we interpret as tinnitus. For those who have it, there is no wonderful cure for it. The best thing one can do is to mask it. So any sort of white noise, if you happen to have an ocean, that's good. But anything, whooshing noises, shh type of white noise, tends to turn the auditory system down and to suppress that effect.
Can you talk about the relationship between vertigo, various forms of vertigo, and that I had ears, and that I had understood that it was the tinnitus